Um, okay, I'll buy
Yeah, I
that.
love that feature.
Yeah. So now I have to press continue or leave meeting. I'll continue. All right, Sean, as a first order of business, I thought maybe it would be appropriate for you to introduce our new committee member, and then we can each take a moment just to introduce ourselves so that she can attach some faces to the names.
Well, I think that'll be nice, but I think it'll be nicer if we kind of just go around the room and all introduce ourselves too. But
Okay, that's fine.
I'll start by saying I'm Sean Stowski. I'm the Director of Public Works and City Engineer and staff to the Public Works Committee. So I know I routinely annually send you all a ton of stuff. So Guthrie is just new to the committee and joining us. And again, I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, but I'll learn over time. So you know, don't feel overwhelmed. We'll catch you up.
Yeah, it's going to take me a few minutes to hit the road running. Going over the documents.
Okay,
Yeah, so
well,
do you want
I'm
to
gonna-
introduce yourself or
Sure.
Bob?
okay, go ahead. No,
Yeah,
Gayatri.
my name is Gayatri Dinakaran, and I've been a resident of Middleton for the past 17 years.
Okay,
You know, this has been home. I live actually right on Greenway Boulevard, by the, you know, what used to be a part of the Conservancy on the hill earlier. And I work for an IT firm here as Chief Operations Officer. And it was just recently that, you know, Mayor contacted me and asked me if I would like to volunteer for one of the committees, and I was happy to do so. But I think it's going to take me a little more than a hot minute to get myself acquainted with the process, because I'm still a newbie to the public administration setup. I've always been in the corporate sector. So
Okay,
if you know, take a minute to catch up, please excuse me.
yeah, that's fine. And anytime you have questions, let me know.
I will. Thank you, Sean.
Okay.
You've, you know, your input and information has been very vital for me to even catch up to speed here.
well, welcome to the committee, Gayatri. We look forward to working with you. I'm Bob Lyons. I've been a member of the committee for the past 9 years or so, and I'm serving my second term as the chair of the committee. So let us know what we can do to help you get up to speed on anything, but we look forward to your input in the committee from here on out.
Thank you very much, Bob.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. Susan?
I'm Susan West. I'm the District 6 Alder, which is Middleton Hills. This is the second or third year I've been on Public Works. I've been on City Council since 2008, and I am not an engineer. I'm a microbiologist. I taught at the vet school, so I'm not fully educated about all the little details. But I will say I do serve on the Middleton Hills Architectural Review Committee, so I've learned a lot there too.
All right. Robert?
Okay, hi, I'm Robert, not to be confused with Bob. I am another alder person. I'm in District 2, which is south of the library, I guess I would say. I've been on this committee alongside with Susan for maybe the last 2 to 3 years. And I'm still figuring it out too. So, you know, you're in good stead. My family has been here also about 17 years in Middleton. So we've got a lot in common there. And this is definitely home to me. My wife grew up here, so it's really, really home to her. And in my day job, I am an engineer. I'm the regulatory compliance officer and intellectual property manager for a company that manufactures and sells fitness equipment. Our U.S. division is out in Cottage Grove. So yeah, it's I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be trying to use my engineering mind for a type of engineering that I don't do in my day job. So hopefully I can bring a little to the table, but I'm always learning and look forward to working with you.
All right, Carrie, I think is next, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Carrie Scheffner, and I've been on the Public Works Committee for about, I think, 4 or 5 years. And I've really enjoyed my time on the committee. And my background is I work on my day job. I work for the U.S. Green Building Council. They certify buildings on how energy efficient and the water resources and materials, et cetera. You might have heard of LEED. So I have some familiarity with some of the issues that Public Works brings to the table, but I'm not an engineer like, some of the other committee members, but I've learned a lot along the way. Yeah, and I've also a resident in Middleton. Gosh, I don't know how many years now. It's probably been 8 years or so.
All right, thanks, Carrie. Carl, you're in-house, I guess.
I'm Carl Stumpf. I'm starting my 2nd year on the committee. Retired engineer, mechanical engineer, who spent most of his career in the design of mechanical electrical systems for buildings. And I've lived in Middleton for about 40 years.
All right, thanks, everybody. And again, welcome, Gayatri. We have a quorum, so we can do business. The first item of which is minutes of our June 28th meeting.
This is Robert. I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second to Robert's motion?
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the June 28th minutes are adopted. Our second and last item on the agenda is Bell Farm Concept Review.
Oh, we're making terrific time.
Yeah, thirds of the way done.
Great.
So Sean sent us a great deal of material regarding this, and I'm not sure, Sean, do you think you want to start out with having the developer and company make a presentation, or do you want to go over some of the
I think-
items that you submitted to us?
I think for the more broad overview, that would be a good place to start, just for context, so here we're going to talk mostly about road stuff. Eventually we'll talk about utility stuff, and I'm flipping my head back and forth. That's not because I'm nervous. You're just on two sides of my room. So we'll talk about road stuff today, and really I think our discussion probably will focus in the big picture on Bellefontaine Boulevard, and maybe to a lesser degree on Parmenter Street. Those are the two big roads that are involved with this. The rest will be local roads that we'll figure out as we go. Although access control, number of access per length is going to be an issue, I think, that we need to talk about. So you've got a ton of stuff for me, but is there a picture in our packet that's good for me to bring up for folks?
Do you want me to share my screen? I put together something that.
You can try.
If you enable me to share it.
Let me look under more. Maybe it's there. Thanks. Let's let everybody share.
You should just be able to click share screen.
I always think it's easy, and then they move buttons.
Oh, I see you have to stop share.
Right. Yeah, on my, like Carrie said, on my screen, there's a share screen button. So maybe Kathleen just needs
Yeah,
to.
now I have the ability to do it.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so I think, first of all, I guess I wanted to start by saying I know that I have a lot of respect for what's gone on in the process related to Bellefontaine and everything that we took into. I want you to know that we took into consideration greatly the fact that this needs to connect, right? From Misty Valley to Parmenter, and also that there was a broader purpose originally in mind. We took all of that into consideration as we designed this, and this wasn't our first go around. We had actually come before concept review a couple of years ago too, just looking for ways to be able to make that connection and make it work. So this is just an overview, a reminder of the land. So that's Parmenter that's running vertical with the land, and then obviously Highway 12 and Graber Pond down in the lower right, and then connecting back to the Misty Valley. I took this shot, we have this shot in there because this is a look from the Beltline Highway, and I wanted you to see it from this perspective, from how like stunning the land is. I know all of you are from this area, you go by it all the time, but this is like a beautiful piece of land with obviously the gorgeous pond. I took this in November of 2019 actually. So as we sat down to design this, it was like, from our perspective, it was like, how do you preserve the beauty of this piece of land, which is an asset not only to me as the owner and the developer and all the future residents who will live there, but really to the city of Middleton, while making this very necessary road connection. How do you build and how do you do that in a way that's financially feasible? Because I think other developers have come along and looked at this land and tried to figure that out. And how do we approach the design process in a way that navigates the very delicate balance between the necessity of the road, the functionality of the road, the beauty of the land, the creating public access to the pond, creating a sense of community, and allowing for open space and biodiversity and more soil open available to drink. And so, and again, doing this in a way that financially makes sense. So we were contending with a lot of different things as we sat down, and a lot of thought was put into the design. And I know you guys have seen some of these, but originally, like, we know we have to bring it through. So then we were looking at a variety of ways. How can we bring it through in a way that kind of preserves all those things while still hopefully gives the functionality? And I know that's what we're here to discuss tonight. This was the a sketch of the community at large. It goes into a little bit more detail here. And then just to give like a bird's eye view of what this would look like. So again, we're coming on the bottom of the screen, coming from Misty Valley. That's still drawn as a boulevard there because again, we're trying to sort through what we're going to have to do with that. But as we come in through Misty Valley, this is how this would play out in terms of still preserving the beauty of the land, hopefully giving an awesome connection to and because we're able to develop around the road, bringing that financial feasibility. And then this is just another from a different angle view where you can get another look at that in terms of how that plays out with Bellefontaine. So I know there are lots of different issues that we will discuss tonight. We have some questions as well. And I think that's it from my perspective. I know that Bruce here has more information in terms of some of the technical stuff that maybe was missing from the original, when we came before concept review a few weeks ago.
And I'd say that's really normal at concept, right?
Yeah.
The more lines you draw, it's just money. When you have to change it, that starts to get pricey.
Right.
I get that. So
Bruce, do you have anything you want to?
Well, my name is Bruce Holler. I'm with D'Onofrio Kotkin Associates. Kathleen's civil engineer. I guess my biggest, before I can move forward with the sort of the final layout of the street network and the actual right-of-way dedications and the platting itself, I got to come to an understanding of what will be acceptable to both the city and our vision of how we see the neighborhood, working and kind of the road system integrating in throughout all the land uses. And I guess I'm here tonight to try to, first of all, obviously the Bellefontaine is one item, but also just hoping that there's going to be a little bit of give and take with the from the typical standard residential 66 foot right away cookie cutter street section, and wondering if there's ways to I guess reduce that a little bit, similar to what we've seen in Misty Valley and Middleton Hills, some interesting street cross sections. So I want to kind of see what we can work out with that information and that sort of setup.
On that last point, Bruce, I just to interrupt you. That's on the local streets you're talking about?
The local streets, and then I think we put together a Bellefontaine cross section for the one-way system that you're seeing, kind of the peanut shaped roadway system. Because and I don't know if there was another.
I think it's easier to see on.
On the,
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah.
On that one. You got that one?
I can pull up the, in a second, you can keep talking.
So, and it kind of goes in line with this, is that, at the planning commission meeting, one of the items that came up was, I don't know, throughout the process of over the years, understanding the road connection is we want to make that road connection. At the Plan Commission meeting, there was some mention about Bellefontaine's connection to Parmenter no longer necessarily needing to be a boulevard section. I don't know if that evolved throughout the master planning process of the updated land use plan or the vision. And, if yeah.
Sure.
So
This is, sorry, Bruce. You're talking, you're asking questions at the same time, and that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I mean, I think we're all trying to kind of figure out what this is and what we need to do. So you mind if I jump in for a minute?
Oh, go ahead.
Robert?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know how this, the comprehensive plans may have changed things either. And Sean, if you have any information, feel free to weigh in. But I mean, that's the big question in my mind too, is, my understanding was this was intended to be a collector street.
Yeah.
And the goal was to have, we know how busy Century Avenue is, and it only gets busier as time progresses. So this was designed to be, at one point, to be an eventual outlet and kind of a relief valve for some of the traffic that currently always takes Century Avenue, I believe. And is there a lot of traffic on there now? No, because we don't, it's not going anywhere. It's not going through to Parmenter. So we don't really know what that could look like, but what personally, I think this is beautiful. I mean, I really love this. I can see why the Plan Commission is looking at this and really being appreciative of everything you've done. But the big question that I think needs to be answered by this group and Plan is, what is the intent for traffic? How much traffic do we need to move through this area? Because that will answer a lot of questions for everybody. I think if there's going to be 1,000 cars an hour, you may not want to have it all going around a park that people have to cross this relatively busy street to get to. And then we have to find maybe a different street routing to handle that kind of a flow. if we really are going to back away from the original intent and go away from a collector, what does that mean? What does that leave for the traffic on Century Avenue and other areas, and where does it leave us? So I have the same questions that I think you do, Bruce, and I don't know the answers yet either. I think we're going to have kind of an iterative process here a little bit, but Sean, do you have a feel for, has there been a change of plan for this collector street?
Let me jump in for just a second.
Go ahead, Bob.
This is a major departure from what was originally planned for Bellefontaine Boulevard and for what was adopted just a very short time ago in the city's 2021 comprehensive plan. That still looked at Bellefontaine being a major collector and a connecting between Parmenter and ultimately Highway Q. And this, unless you plan on having that kind of traffic volume go around this peanut-shaped park, I don't know. I think there are some real concerns about the traffic pattern, the way it shows up here. I mean, I love the design. It's a great idea. I do have a question. When we're looking at this park, how big is this park in terms of its width from either one of the top
900
ends or
feet
across
long.
the middle of the peanut?
Oh, across the middle, do you know the middle?
The short part of it, or the
Yeah.
long, 900 feet, you said, right?
900 feet long, but I don't know.
Oh.
100 feet in the middle?
No, that's the long
From
way.
end the long way from.
I would probably 50 to 200 feet,
Okay, so
skinny part, yeah.
yeah. And the outside extremities of the park are going to be bigger, a little bit bigger than that.
Mhm.
And you're,
Yep.
One of the things that was in the original plan was angle parking, which I think I would be quite significantly opposed to along this thing. But if you do parallel parking, where would the parallel parking be? On the inside of the street, next to the park, or on the opposite side of the street?
It would be, we currently have it drawn on the inside, and, that was in response to even a couple years ago when city staff and really indicated how much they wanted to share the pond and share the space with the general public to have that be more accessible. So when we designed this, we were looking for ways to add accessibility even with parking, and I totally understand, we can definitely relook at the angle parking versus the, maybe parallel parking, but I just wanted you to know where that came from. It came from a desire to give people a place to park and to come and enjoy.
Well, I think the park concept is a great one. I'm not personally convinced that it's best to have the traffic flowing around the park rather than having the park on either the north side of the roadway or on the south side of the roadway, so that you have fewer people having to cross streets to get to the park. Because, there aren't, this seems to me this road is going to have a reasonably healthy amount of traffic once things are developed there. And there just aren't ways people are going to be parking there and unloading things, kids and park equipment and what have you. And there's going to be a lot of pedestrian car interaction, it seems to me, with all that parking right next to the park on the street. But
Well, I guess
Yeah.
there is an opportunity, I think, I guess you could, whether you use the space on the roadway for the parking or have a off-site or off-street parking in a lot within the park, then you only have one access point onto the street, one or two, depending on which direction you're going. So
I think it would eat up a lot of the park to have a lot on the park. or in the park. Yeah, I mean, I think for us to know which is the most important to solve, because it, you know, again, having the parking along the park helps people just be right there next to it. But I also hear what you're saying. So I'm like, you know, trying to solve which, because if we put them away from the park, then they're crossing the street to get to the park. This way they're right there.
That's true for the people who park there, but the people in the neighborhood are going to have to cross the street to get to the park too. No matter where they live in the neighborhood, they're going to have to cross one or the other streets to get to the park. And there aren't that many places where there are likely to be crosswalks, and parks being what they are, and park users, many of them being kids, being who they are, there are going to be people just running across the street to get to the park. I mean, that's just intuitively what's going to happen. And that, for a street with a significant amount of traffic on it, is not, in my mind anyway, the safest thing that could be designed. But that's one opinion and one consideration. Personally, I would like to see what a layout might look like with the park either to the north or the south of the road, so that you don't have that many pedestrian crossings getting to and from the park. And especially, you know, the ones going from the park back to the neighborhood, if there's parking, parallel parking along the street, people are going to be running out and walking out between cars to cross in the middle of the block. And it just seems to me that that's a very potentially dangerous situation.
Oh, I have a question.
Yep.
Is it okay to ask?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is Carrie. And again, like, I'm just trying to go back in time a little bit. Why was Bellefontaine, why did we want to make that a collector street? Like, I'm just looking at a map and just trying to understand, I guess, the logic behind that. Like, if there's going to be a lot of residents, like,
Yeah,
you know, on this road, like, is this the best idea in the first place? And is there an alternative, I guess?
let me bring up a sort of a regional map. Shield your eyes if you have vertigo.
Yeah, Carrie, I will comment in answering your question. Is north of Middleton Hills and that whole area is our long-term growth area. The city has no place to expand geographically other than north of Middleton Hills and Misty Valley. So that's part of why this is considered a collector road.
It sort of goes back to the city's master planning from long ago, when there was discussion of a I don't want to call it the North Belt Line, but it was supposed to be sort of a major arterial / major collector street, and the state wouldn't take lead on it, the county wouldn't take lead on it, and so the regional planning that the city took part in said, well, let's get this corridor connector someplace between County K and County M, and we'll put it sort of in the middle. Well, part of that's not going to work anymore because the county in the meantime went off and bought the acre farm over, I want to say 160 acres over here. So that's not going to happen, but we'd have to realign that. And that's part of what the comprehensive plan said is, well, we'll now have to find a way around that.
Sean, also the acre farm was going to be our residential expansion area.
Right. So the only part that's built is this little piece, but in the regional context, it's supposed to go from Parmenter Street over to County M as sort of a major collector corridor to help take some of the traffic off of M Century Avenue that's heading toward the Beltline. That was the idea. Whether it's still the idea or not is, I think, today's question. You know, because we've only got this little piece right now, and even it's only half there. The other half isn't even there yet. But I think the more there's always a trade-off, right, between mobility and access. Either you want a lot of people kind of coming and going from side streets or crosswalks, or you just want to get people from A to B in the big picture. And there's a sort of a continuum in that range, but this was intended to be more on the mobility end of that range, if you will. So this was intended to move cars and people from place to place with limited access.
In Greenbrier, but I think that was considered at one point. I guess it's still in yellow, so it's still considered that.
Well, I don't know if you've driven Greenbrier.
I have, yes.
It's sort of never going to serve that purpose. It's just not built for it.
Why wouldn't K do that?
K does do that. And during peak travel periods, K is not
Right.
at peak
Very
density,
full.
but it's inefficient. And Century Avenue too can take more traffic, but it gets really inefficient.
Yeah.
And I think that was the recognition with this northern ring, is that we're just out of options to connect people. It turns out this lake right between the north side and the city of Madison really just isn't convenient. So sort of everybody wants to get to the Beltline or just around the lake. And it's just a bit much. So anyway, I think that regional context is sort of important to what we're just looking at a little piece of it, I'll admit.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, Sean. Thank you. I guess my opinion is that it doesn't seem like a great spot to have a cluster street if this is a lot of residential. It seems like a smaller road through these areas would be better, and all of this has to, like you said, it's all about probably the master plan, because what about public transportation and other options to kind of help with some of this congestion? I don't know. It seems like this isn't a great solution in my mind.
That's part of the trend analysis too, is, you can do planning 10 years ago and then watch demographic shift. Younger people tend not to want to have their own cars, or at least not 2 or 3 of them. And they'd rather live right in an urban center than in suburbs. I don't know where that ends up. I can't say. So that's part of why the Metropolitan Planning Organization jumps in and says, what are some of those major trends? How does that affect what we should be planning in terms of transportation corridors? And I think it would be good to reinvestigate with MPO's current model what's necessary in this area.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Bob, I have some questions.
Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, one of them, and this I know isn't the purview of public.
Sorry, Susan. Could I get you to turn your video on for participation in meetings? Mike Davis tells me that's an important part.
Okay, I will
Thanks.
hold I was looking at my iPad in my lap, so.
I get it, believe me.
Okay. One of my concerns is the Central Park. And for this development, I know you're required by PRFC to have a certain amount of parkland or so on. Is this going to be an active park with playground for little kids, or is it going to be more just a green space area for, say, adults to walk in?
Well, I think originally our land planner had drawn in a little playground area there, but I feel like this is this aspect, because we have a daycare down at the south side of the property that has playground behind that. To be honest, I feel like this is more of an adults oriented park. Not that it's, I mean, there will be kids there, but I feel like it will be used a little bit more in that fashion. Those final decisions haven't been made, and we've been working with we just had a meeting with the Parks Department as well. So those decisions haven't been finalized.
Okay, because I think that influences how I look at this, because I know you need a certain amount of active parkland. And I've got to admit, I've got concerns that the daycare park probably won't meet that goal. So I do have, if there are going to be a lot of children there, I've got real concerns about the shape of it and kids crossing the street. Because this is going to be a rather busy street. Not necessarily when it's first developed, but if we expand north of Middleton Hills, there will be a lot of residences, a huge number of residences there that will probably be taking this to get to the Beltline. So I think we definitely need to look into that. I mean, the kind of parking, I've got concerns about. And I think the one thing I will say in terms of this being a collector road, having the county buy the land for conservancy helps tremendously, because it does reduce the amount of houses that will be built out there. But I definitely have concerns about how this park is used in terms of the traffic pattern. So I'm finished.
Thank you, Susan. Were there athletic fields or anything like that planned in this park, or it's just open
Yes,
space?
so along Parmenter, so the multifamily housing goes along Parmenter. Yep, so that area right there, that can you guys see his cursor there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The floating hand.
So there are pickleball courts, tennis courts, a soccer field, a basketball court, all in that area. So there's more pickleball courts in front of the on Serenby Street there in the, anyway, but all the courts are in that general area.
All right, but no athletic fields or anything in the, for lack of a better word, the Peanut Park?
No.
Okay.
In terms of, I mean, truthfully, one of the ways we designed this was to be a place of exploration. That's why we wanted it to be interconnected in terms of pedestrian and bike paths, and for you to, you get to explore the urban park. There's a meditation area that looks down over the pond. There's a wellness walkway that goes down toward the pond. There are the sports courts. There's the urban farm north of the sports courts. And part of it was that we wanted the property to be a place that it's a place of discovery and lots of outdoor options. So I hear what you're saying in terms of, I do hear what you're saying in terms of the traffic and the traffic concern with that, but I wanted to give a little bit more backstory as to like, why are the courts up here and the urban park here, and wanted this to be like a great unfolding across the property because it's just so beautiful overall.
Okay, is the green area at the bottom of the page below the urban park, is that more natural land with trails?
Yeah, there are trails, there's a wellness walk. Now, partly, I mean, I think Bruce can say, partly we're also in the process of doing our stormwater management plan. So although we have a lot of things drawn in here, a lot of the stormwater management might dictate some of this, because that will be an area for stormwater management. So we don't have that finalized yet. So because of that, I can't tell you exactly how that will play out yet.
Well, all of those nice amenities, the walking trails and the overlook of the pond and all of those things are all wonderful features, but they will all bring people in from outside the area too, to explore them and to utilize those resources. And that means more traffic and more people parking. So I just think the notion of that central park is a difficult one.
I think in my mind, I think it's only difficult if this is a collector street. If it's not,
Right.
then I think I'm more open to having that. I mean, I like that urban park concept because it does have more green space.
Carrie, I understand what you're saying, but I think, whether it is designated a collector street or whatever it's designated, the people who now live in Misty Valley and other developments that are going to take place back there are going to go through this area to get to the Beltline, to go into Madison, whether you call it a collector street or whether you call it something else. There's going to be a significant amount of traffic here just because of where it's located and what's going to develop to the north and I guess east of it over time. And I think that's just bound to, I mean, people who live in Misty Valley now, I would assume, and there are some significant number of them, people who live there now, and it's only, as Sean said, half developed. A lot of them are going to go to the Beltline to get into Madison, and the logical place for them to go is going to be through here.
Yeah, Bob, I agree with you. Currently, they're going down High Road, but this would be a whole lot easier to get to the Beltline or Parmenter. So it's going to be a major street with a lot of traffic on it.
Whatever you call it.
So then the question is, and I tend to agree with everybody, really. Is there a way you can still have this and have a collector street that kind of runs up along the north side of the property or something where, and that's for the people who are going to buy the homes on that side, having it's not a highway, but having a busier street back behind their homes wouldn't be ideal, but then you could potentially have that it is kind of this lazy, slow driving thing around the park because the collector street is really a different street, to the north, let's say. And I'm just pointing to the north because that seems like a better place than trying to put it south. I don't know the option, but I think that's the problem that we have is like Bob said, no matter what we call it, no matter what we think it's going to be, I think traffic is going to continue to develop and continue to increase. And with this current configuration of roadway and streets, I think we're just setting ourselves up for a conflict of usage and a lot of unhappy people who live in this community as traffic gets more and more intense. But if we design now a bypass, basically, it says here's where the real traffic goes is someplace else, and we basically bottleneck it so that only people coming to the park or to their homes would take this peanut-shaped road, then I think it becomes more doable.
I agree with that, Robert. And I think that's what I kind of meant with if you don't design it as a collector street, like a faster way to get there. If you design it where it's, like you were saying, more lazy way about going there, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe we have some traffic calming features or something. But I don't know what the options are either, but I agree with you. I like the idea of having a different outlet, I guess, if that's possible.
I get the beauty of this design, and it's beautiful and it's nice, but you throw on high traffic onto this and it's a problem. So that's why I'm just saying, can you start looking at a roadway that can handle the traffic and keep everything else you want, but just have that outlet? Because I don't think this gives us the ability to have the amount of traffic that will develop over time.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions. And I will say, in terms of the peanut, when you look at it, you're making, as you enter into that area, you are making a right-hand turn, which is going to slow everybody down with a curved road. But one of the things I sense that you're trying to do with this development is make it a lot like Middleton Hills. So a specific question is, how wide are the sidewalks and how wide are the terraces? because for walkers, that will make a difference. In Middleton Hills, we've got 5-foot sidewalks with 8-foot terraces. But other parts of the city, like on High Road, it's a 3-foot sidewalk, and I'm not sure how wide the terrace is. Significantly smaller than the Middleton Hills ones. So if it's going to be more a walking area, it needs to be also for the people that are walking so they will feel safe with the wider sidewalks and terraces. Is that going to be in place?
Our old standard was 4-foot sidewalks, but our current standard is 5-foot sidewalks.
Okay, so they have to have 5-foot sidewalks. How wide are the terraces?
Well, that's variable. That depends what kind of road we're building. As you know, the city in, I want to say 2006, adopted a pretty wide palette of standard sections, depending on traffic for the most part.
Yeah, but that's one thing that I think would make people feel a little safer if it's got a nice wide terrace with the wider sidewalk.
I think most of our cross sections include a reasonable terrace width.
Yeah, well, I guess, Sean, I'm asking what the developer's planning.
We're doing a 5-foot sidewalk is what I had planned. And I'm showing a 6-foot wide terrace, but again, that was just my, our first request, enough for some snow storage and some tree to come, be in there. But yeah, and then, there is a dedicated bike path that will be integrated throughout the development as well, for people to use.
Is that off street or on street?
The bike path?
Yeah.
Mostly off street, I guess, depending upon where we bring it into Parmenter, there could be a shared street access.
Don't those dotted lines on the picture that we have in front of us now, on Bellefontaine, around the Peanut and out on the out toward Parmenter Street, don't those indicate that that's bike path
On the south side there?
in the street? Well, on the south side, I see it going through the greenway, but the dots that are in the roadway, isn't that, I took that to mean that was dedicated bike path in the roadway.
Yeah, I don't know. Usually when I read bike path, that's off street and bike lane is on street. But people use those words differently. So
What are those little dots if not bike path?
They are bike paths. I think are you clear as to which ones are separate from the road?
No, I know we have a connection on the east side where we see the little dotted with the little arrow, I think.
out here.
Yeah. That's off-site or off-site. We're connecting it, that's off-road.
Around Grayburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as you're heading into the park, again, it's whether if it's, like Sean was saying, it's either 10-foot wide when it's not in the road, but if there are a bike lane within the roadway.
Okay, well, that's what I thought it meant. I guess that's what it does mean.
Yeah, and most of our collector and arterial roads, we want bike lanes in the roadway. Some of them also have bike paths outside the road. But they cater to different class of cyclists. Those who just want to get someplace and don't want to deal with dogs on leashes, go out on the road. And for the rest of us, it's a mixed bag, depending on whether or not we're in a hurry.
All right, but just so I'm clear, what is envisioned is that there would be a bike, either lane or path, whatever you want to call it, along the roadway that circles the Peanut. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
And is the width of the Peanut at the narrow part or the size of it truly 50 feet?
No, it was more like 150 to 200 plus or minus.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes more sense. 50 feet seemed incredibly narrow.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, I want to commend you for giving us so much to look at. I know at these early stages, a lot of times there's a lot less developed. So this really gives us a lot to talk about, which is awesome, and thank you. Yeah, but getting, so I'm hoping that, because it is still preliminary, even though you've given us a lot to look at here, I'm hoping that there's still some things that can be changed. I'm not sure what that will be, but I am thinking, like I stated earlier, that another road for the traffic may be necessary, because if this is the only roadways, this is going to be way too busy for this area, I think. Or it's going to be a bottleneck that's so bad that nobody will drive this way, which then defeats the whole purpose that we had for the collector street. So
I think that's one of our, what would be so helpful for us would be to get some determination whether it's going to be a collector street or not. I totally understand the comment that even without it being a collector street, there's going to be traffic. So I totally understand that point. But if we could have some, because if we could have some clarification as to whether it's going to be a collector street or not, whether that we need to, have that boulevard there or not, that would be super helpful as we go, if we go back to the drawing table to actually, because if we redraw it and then we come back and then it's still a moving target as to what that is, I don't know that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought that question had been resolved unless the council has changed its mind. The plan for Bellefontaine and the Middleton Comprehensive Plan all had that listed as a collector street, and that's some of that pretty recent, unless the council has changed its focus.
Yeah. Bob, that's been my impression.
yeah.
And I would certainly say for traffic coming from the north, there's really two places that it will come south and hit Century Avenue. One is Pheasant Branch Road, which turns it into a really bad intersection in Middleton Hills. It's a Y intersection, and then becomes a very congested, very short block before it gets to Century. That would not make a good collector street, just because you would have traffic so backed up trying to get out at that stoplight. Right. And with that intersection. The other one then becomes High Road, which we also don't really want that to be too much of a collector because of Northside Elementary.
Cool.
So
I think High Road, though, that's going to be no matter, like, kind of the same comment. That's going to be no matter what we like.
I kind of agree. It's like
it
may
will
not want
be,
it
but
for the elementary
but we don't
school.
need to force the traffic onto it. Additional traffic on, having some alternatives would be good.
And they're trying to do different things. High Road goes north-south, and it's one of the few roads in Middleton that actually does that. So it was built to be a 4-lane undivided road. We're only using it for 2 lanes, but that's not why it was built.
So I guess we're all fumbling about what the future will bring. But Kathleen, what I would say is right now, I think our group is pretty strongly under the belief that this still needs to be a collector street, or there needs to be a collector street going through here. It doesn't need to be the one around the peanut park. But traffic needs to go through this area. Now, not to add variability to this, but I did hear some of the planning staff in the video, because I did watch the plan commission meeting, and there were a couple of comments that made me think, there may be some options out there, but we haven't heard them. So right now we have to go forward assuming that we can't be the ones to constrain this traffic for this area. So if I were to give you clear direction today as one member of Public Works, I would be that we're going to need to account for the type of traffic that would be found on a collector street. And again, I don't know exactly what that number is, but I would say at peak, you're going to have a lot of cars. I threw out a number before that was totally made up of 1,000 cars an hour, and maybe that'll never happen on a collector street, but it's, you know, it's going to be higher. It's not going to be 80 cars in an hour or 40 cars in an hour. I think it's going to be, we have to plan for it being higher than that. So to me, that means probably something directing traffic away from this park for the majority of that traffic, and then trying to figure out how to still get everything you want, because this is a really nice plan and a really nice community, and I don't want to lose all the good things that you've worked on, but I want to give you that clear direction that I think collector streets are, a collector street is still necessary to get from Bellefontaine Boulevard to the east out to Parmenter Street to the west. However that needs to happen, I don't know. And I think, all of the city committees need to continue talking. And if there is something else changing, I need to hear that from Plan Commission. I need to hear that from, the other committees that might weigh in on this. But because the city planners, like I said, did make a couple of statements that made me think there may be a little change in the future, but I don't see how it changes the major plan, which as other people have said, was just voted on recently to say, yeah, this is a plan that this is going to be a collector street through point A to point B here.
Kathleen, let me ask a question. Do you think it's feasible to maintain the integrity of your intent here in your design and to have the roadway run either north or south of the park so that it's not this circular loop around the park?
So I guess some questions would be, if you look at the alleyway on the north side,
This one?
the one that goes, back east-west.
Oh,
Yeah,
along?
the alley
the
back
back.
behind the houses.
Oh, okay. So along the
I
outside.
mean, how far can we push, the topography is steep there, but how far could we push that road north so that we could possibly slide everything down? Like, what would you guys feel comfortable with, I guess, is number one.
I would start, Bruce, at a 35-mile-an-hour design speed and see where that gets you.
Mhm.
Because in terms of south, I think based on all the arguments that were made here tonight, I don't think you guys want it south, because although that would, the parking down near the pond, which again was something we heard loud and clear before, that we wanted to provide more public access to the pond. Although that does that, now you still are crossing back and forth the street from the urban park down to the pond. So I think that goes against what everybody was saying here tonight. So if we're going to have a separate collector road, in my mind, it has to be north, and I guess it's going to depend on both the speed factor and the topography, how far north we can push it. I don't know, Bruce, do you have anything to say off the top of your head?
No, that'll be the kind of the guidelines we'll have to abide by and run with. But yeah, there is significant topography we're going to have to work with.
I mean, because if you cut right through the property, this is what we were contending with even back in 2019. You slice this, this feature that can be, again, an asset for Middleton. It makes it really hard to create a sense of place. And it's not that it's impossible, but we can definitely look at that north option. I just don't, without knowing how far north we can go from an engineering standpoint, and then I guess what you guys are comfortable with there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, if you're speaking to us, Robert, you're muted.
I was muted. Thank you. That's why we share our pictures, so you can see when I'm being foolish.
You could have been talking to someone else. It's all right.
No, it was me. It was me talking to you. Thank you. I don't know what it's gonna look like either. But I do think north side, 35 miles per hour type road is the way to look at this, and see if you can still keep the urban park, the nice leisurely, driving around the park or parking around the park or whatever, but get the traffic off that road and see what you can do. I think
Is it currently 35 miles an hour? I can't remember in Misty Valley, coming into Bellefontaine into Misty Valley. Is it 35?
No, it should
I
be
got
25.
25?
I'd have
Well,
to-
I'm having a problem with the idea of 35 miles an hour with
I don't
on-street parking.
I don't
I
think that's
agree.
posted speed, Susan. I think that's the design speed.
right.
Those are
post
different.
You post
Okay.
it less, and you don't have parking on. That's why I'm saying is, if you want parking, you still have your leisurely. It's like the difference between the roads that are going through our subdivisions and the road that's just outside the subdivision, right? We're saying we need the road outside the subdivision so that the roads inside the subdivision can be the 15 to 20 mile an hour type stuff, where people have the time to look for children, a place to park without feeling like you got a car driving up your tailpipe, so on and so forth. I think we still want all of those features for the park and for parking near the park and near Graber Pond, but that does require us to have this separate roadway that is designed to really carry the through traffic, so to speak.
Yeah, that was going to be my, that was going to be my observation as well. If it's going to be a connecting road or a conduit to the belt line or something, people are not necessarily going to be interested in a park or even plan to slow down near a park.
Right.
So putting it around the peanut shaped park, I think it'll probably be counterintuitive to the people living there.
Right.
I don't know that we'll still end up with a peanut, because if we'll possibly, meaning if I got to think about that.
Right.
And then, are we,
Because
I've got-
maybe we just do the two-way, we'll just do the two-way with Bellefontaine on the north side, and then just kind of figure it out from there in terms of what we're left with land-wise and everything else. So I can't guarantee that everything just magically shifts
No.
south as is.
Right.
I
Are we
have a
still-
question. So the
So we
road
might
going
do some of the access to the park is what I'm saying, parking wise and stuff, because I just don't know how that's gonna play out yet.
Is the
Susan?
road going around the urban park 2 lanes on each side or 1 lane?
it would just be one lane.
Okay, that might not be as bad as we're thinking, because you've got a right turn to go into it. It is curvy. If there's parking, a significant amount of parking on one side, it will slow people down. That does occur in Middleton Hills.
That
Where
was
we-
part of the thought that, how do we make the connection and have it be connect, but also have some traffic calming. So part of that was designed to be like that.
Yeah, so that right turn to go into the peanut really is a big traffic calming thing.
I think it would do that too. I just want to be upfront that then it's not going to function like the city had planned for it to function. That's all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is it can be a collector where it's the 4 lanes coming in,
Well,
and then it hits this as a 1 lane going around. That becomes huge traffic calming. It won't make it real efficient to get through here.
Becomes a huge
Right.
bottleneck.
And I
think that's
it's no
a-
longer a collector then, unfortunately.
I was gonna say, I think that's not a great idea to have 4 lanes of traffic and then coming into one. I like the idea of the 1 lane around.
I think originally, I think that was drawn because there's how it comes out of Misty Valley currently, how they've dedicated the other 2 lanes with the boulevard. So I think that was why that was drawn in that way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And that was a question I guess we were looking to have answered tonight too. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be tonight, but
Mhm.
do we need that 4-lane boulevard, you know, coming into and out of?
Right, and that's why it was built in 2 phases.
Right,
Was to
right.
recognize that, gosh, until we need more pavement,
Right.
why build more pavement?
Right.
You know?
Don, do you know? I don't know if there's there's houses. This is outside of this property, but I don't know if there's houses along Bellefontaine right as it comes into this property, or if there's still room to spend money to redirect the very end of that road. Because Kathleen made a good point that the road is coming in at that, I don't know, 50-degree angle or so. And if we were going to be trying to route traffic around the north side of the property, it's really coming in at the wrong place. And I don't know if there's an ability to rotate it up a little bit, or if that's going to.
This is adjacent to Misty Valley, correct?
Well, right. Are there homes right up against this?
Yes.
Or okay, there are. So that's.
I think there's a little corner in here that's not developed. It
But
is
it's
private
not.
owned. You know, so I don't know who owns it. But it's not got houses on it.
Sure. I mean, because I do think that's one thing that is outside of the control of this developer, is where does the road come in? And I don't know if there's anything that we can do to aid if we're saying that a roadway along the north side of this property is beneficial. I don't know if there's something we can do to aid where it comes into this property.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. I think, well, I mean, what you're seeing is right through the middle of the park was sort of the master planning curve. I mean, it comes out right here at the right angle and it picks up right here at the right angle. We just don't want it to be right here with this plan.
Sure.
And that.
Yeah,
it
there's a
does get
picture on page 20 of the elevation that will show Misty Valley and how this comes in.
Page 20 of this packet, page 20?
I don't know. No, it's of what the developer gave us. The 20 of 29. Well, maybe it is the packet.
Okay, well, so this is page 20 from the packet.
She's talking about your page
Maybe I've gotta
numbers,
stop
20 of
sharing.
29.
Okay, and so my page 20 looks like this, right? I don't know which page 20 you're referring to, Susan.
It also says 14 of 23. That might be the packet of the
Okay.
developers.
All
Yes.
right.
So there you can get a feel for what Misty Valley currently looks like and the way Bellefontaine goes through. Keeping in mind, it's a 4-lane road, but only half of it's been built.
Yeah, there are houses up there. There may be a little room for moving things, but that would
Yeah,
need to
not
be
much.
figured out. Yeah,
Not
a
much.
lot.
Their houses are up pretty close to the front.
I think there's 1 or 2 past the intersection, and then there's a little triangular green space.
Not much.
Okay.
Yeah. And their houses are right up against the street.
Yeah,
Correct. On the north side, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that Bellefontaine corridor that's not built yet pretty well has to stay there too, because otherwise you've got those apartments and whatever else they are there that are just way off the road, and there's just a big green space going through there.
right. Well, the sidewalk's already over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it
So
does
is
make
the
it more difficult.
Is the expectation that the Bellefontaine will continue as a boulevard? Or do we, you know, as it sits now, it's just that one side? You know, I'm going back to the Plan Commission comment about the you know, looking more like Schneider Road, it seems like, or it's just a, you know, it isn't a boulevard and it's just a wider cross section of a two-way street.
Well, I think the planning for Bellefontaine that was done and the comprehensive plan that was adopted by the council that dealt with Bellefontaine showed that all as boulevard. Did it
But
not?
I'm not sure that we can do anything about this because, you know, the comprehensive plan right now is covering. I mean, I think unless the comprehensive plan gets changed, which isn't in our court, I think that needs to be, you know.
I think that would be part of the process. If the Public
Right.
Works Committee said, gosh, we have this long-term plan developed in 2007, but we're moving away from that, or we should move away from that.
So what does staff recommend?
Then let's change this whole thing. I don't
That's
have.
what I was thinking. Like, I just think that we need to update the plan. I mean, I think that that's,
Yeah.
you know, that's too long ago. Things have changed.
I'm open to that, but not absent the information that would indicate what's the fallout from that. I mean, we could just build this as a local road and say, we're just never going to expand Bellefontaine. But then when we get to the regional context again,
You're right.
then we're essentially saying this is off the books. We're just not doing it, which effectively means Q and M and K need to carry that traffic. It's coming, and we'll have told those drivers not to come this way.
Right.
I'm
I
okay
think
with
that's the
that
thing,
if that's what the city wants.
Right. But that's my question. Isn't part of that dotted yellow line not an option anyways right now? So I feel like we're working on not a complete plan. That it
Right.
needs to be updated.
It would have to be updated, and that's what the comprehensive plan says is, you know, this little piece of it that's in through the acre farm, now that the county bought it and called it conservancy, we'd have to remap that and figure out, well, where can this go then? Frankly, the county wanted this, and then a different branch of the county bought the land that prevents it from happening. Which is confusing, but welcome to government, I guess. You know, so we have to find a way around that now. And it might be that this carries north and then curves over to Onken Road. I don't know yet. And that's part of what the comprehensive plan said is we need to remap that route. But the comprehensive plan didn't say, let's give up on this route.
Right. Well, I think given what we know today, we have to say that right now that traffic needs to go through your property. But I don't know how quickly other things can happen, because I agree it doesn't make sense to design your entire subdivision to handle the traffic if we can't get it there from other places either. Which is what Carrie is saying. So hopefully we can kind of start having those conversations sooner rather than later, and maybe we can give you a more definitive answer fairly soon. But as we stand here today, I don't see how we can say that that traffic doesn't need to go through your property.
I think maybe it would be helpful if I talk to the MPO, the planning organization staff, and see once if their travel demand model has been updated to the point that they can give us better. I mean, they've got all of our land use, they've got all of our density projections, they've got our census data to figure out if planning from 2007 is just so far off target, it no longer matters.
Yeah, the sooner we can find that out, that may change all of the options available here.
I think that'd be helpful.
I'm thinking that, you know, if this is a Century Avenue type street, I mean, I don't think one lane is appropriate. I don't think going from 2 lanes to 1 lane is appropriate. You're just going to create massive traffic jams in this area. And I don't think the residents would be happy about that either. So, I don't know. It's too bad because I don't think the way the development's laid out, it's appropriate to put a collector street through it. But maybe going around it would make some sense, but I don't know, those single lanes on either side of that urban park really bother me.
Well, Sean, what would you like from the committee tonight? We've expressed a number of concerns we have. There were a couple other issues that we might have talked about as well. But we're not ripe for a motion to do anything, I don't think, are we?
Well, it's hard to say what I want.
What do you need from us?
I know the plan commission referred it and specifically, I think for input on, you know, what the thoughts are from a public works perspective about the roadmap. I think that's
I think we've given them plenty of input to chew on.
I've heard a bunch of that, right? So I think in terms of follow-up actions, Bruce probably can lay out a 35-mile-an-hour design, 35-mile-an-hour road along the north edge someplace maybe, and see in concept what that leaves for the development. I can talk with MPO staff about their travel model and see once if a collector road in this area between K and M is something that we're still interested in regionally. Because if we need to change the comprehensive plan, we should take it on in the big picture, not in the little picture. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this whole map changes that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that we need, or if it's even helpful right now to get into the specifics of parking or, you know, local streets, because this drives all of that.
Correct.
It seems.
And you mentioned 35 miles an hour. 35 miles an hour coming into the neighborhood like this. Is there any reason we wouldn't want to maybe just for a traffic calming standpoint, just design it for 25? So if people coming from the east still are slowing down and they get into the development, and then likewise leaving the.
It's hard for me to imagine 35 in Misty Valley. Because
Well, again, this isn't the posted speed and we're not
Yeah.
hoping people drive that way. So when we talk about design speed, it's
Yeah.
got a little bit of forgiveness built into it.
yeah, for a city.
So if someone's behaving a
Yeah.
little bit the way we don't want them
Yeah.
to behave, that it's still at least safe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Sean, you're saying design it for 35 miles per hour, but post it for 25?
Or 30, both would be safe posted speeds then on a 35 road.
Okay.
That's just a decision at that point.
Is it true though, Sean, that if you design it for 35, then you're kind of designing just, you know, to allow it to be a higher speed road? Whereas, you know, if you're trying to design it, but I don't know, I do worry about that a little bit if we're trying to.
Yeah, and that's part of those, you know, what's its intent again, right? So if it's
Right.
intended for mobility, you know, that there's going to be more people on it with more need for forgiveness than if it's a, you know, a driveway to a farmhouse. That's just intended for access, but not mobility.
Right.
And people can go as slow as they want. And I think where we ran into most of our troubles is we've got a lot of local streets that are really wide and really straight, and it's easy to go really faster than they were ever intended. They were just designed and built at a time when nobody really thought about that very much.
Yeah.
I live on one of them.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I live on a collector street and people take us up on the offer. It's straight and it's flat and it's safe. There are very few crashes on it.
Well, so
So I don't know if anything fits into a motion unless you want to adopt something by consensus with directions or if you want to phrase that in terms of a motion, just in support of the city's official map and master plan.
Yeah, that would be the motion I would want to make, I think, just so other committees, I mean, obviously, we have the developer here tonight, and thank you for being here and talking this through with us. But at the end of the day, I want other committees to know what our official stance is. And
Could we
I get, ahead,
revise the
Susan.
motion to include Sean writing up our comments also?
Well,
I mean,
only some of them.
yeah, to the
Yes.
ability that he took a few notes.
Yeah, a few notes, and we have the video available, so
Sure.
I really appreciated that for the plan commission discussion, because it
Right.
covered several topics, which was good.
Yeah. But I guess I would want to have something somewhat formalized that says Public Works right now, based on the comprehensive plan, based on, what we've heard, the desire is from the county level, is that we still need a collector street through here, and that we recommend it not be around the urban park, but that it be off to one side, probably the north of the property lines, as much as it possibly can be. I don't know how to phrase it more succinctly than that.
I think
That
that,
would be my motion.
all right. We have a motion from Robert. Is there a second to the motion? I will second the motion. And for purpose of discussion, those, I'm not sure what else as a committee we can do at this point. We can also, or we could amend the motion to have Sean contact the MPO to find out what the feasibility of redrawing some of those lines may be. But I don't think we can do anything very much more specific about this than that at this point. We can let the planning commission and the council know that as a committee, we have reservations about just backing away completely from the plan that was adopted for Bellefontaine and the city's comprehensive plan just adopted this year. And
Yeah, and if
I-
those two
I would-
items change.
Yeah,
can-
I think I like that amendment, Bob, that you mentioned. If we could add to have Sean look into, I forget the name of what was it? The,
MPO,
MPO.
yeah, because I think to me, it just seems like an incomplete plan. So I would feel better kind of, at least initiating that discussion. Like, I feel like that's maybe part of what we could do.
well, Carrie, that amendment is fine with me as the second, if it's fine with Robert as the maker of the motion.
It's absolutely fine with me.
All right. Anybody else have things to say with respect to the motion? Other committee members? All right. All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Sean, I assume you have enough information that you can draft up our concerns here.
I'll give it a whirl. Yeah. And I can go to the videotape too.
Okay.
Are there other questions? I mean, these are obviously the big questions.
Did you have any
but-
questions of the connections of the parliamentary?
Now, I don't know if it pays to get into the other questions that we might have had in terms of, access onto Parmenter Street and some of the others until we have tried to sort out the big picture here.
Because I see on this plan we have up here, what it looks like, that solid yellow line south of there, looks like where it's south of Graber Pond.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is that the Springton connection that I was,
This is Graber.
oh, that's Graber.
Yeah, and it's sort of intended as a little mini bypass someday.
So that's another sort of connection.
Mhm.
So there's a connector versus collector. It is.
And in the comprehensive plan, I read your notes. I did read all the references. Thank you. That was super helpful to like have them identified. Does it, in the comprehensive plan, does it still call it a collector road? I know how it said it needs to make the connection. You know, it said it needed to make the connection, but I don't remember seeing that it said it needed to.
That's a good question. Let me try to find that.
Because all the different references you made referencing the comprehensive plan, I just didn't see that part. I only saw it say it needed to connect Parmenter to the neighborhood.
Trying to find.
It would have been in your agenda notes, I think.
And while Sean looks for that, I would just say a lot of this hopefully will be resolved as we talk to the MPO. And I mean, what we really, I don't care what anything's called. I want to know where the traffic's going. And if it's going to go south of this whole subdivision and go to Graber, you know, great. You know, then our decision here can be changed. But we have to understand kind of the overarching plan for where traffic will be directed.
Yeah, so I think it's this part.
Mhm.
And these parts in quotes are the parts I just copied. So they do use the word connection over and over.
Yeah, and it said eventually provide a direct connection between prime. Oh, I see. Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
So they're calling it a corridor. I guess you have to go to the MPO plan to figure out it's a
Okay.
collector corridor. But you're right.
Right.
It doesn't name it.
It was also planned to be a bus route, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Now that might be a while, but it's designed for that anyway.
Right.
Right.
Well, we welcome that. We
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Me too. I want it in my neighborhood more.
I had that same question though about the Graper Road being more of, you know, another connection.
It doesn't go.
I mean, eventually though, it looks like the
Right.
plan
That's
is,
going through another residential area with not that great a road when it connects into Whittlesey.
yeah, I was wondering about the plan, not how it exists now, but
The little
yeah,
hump up to the north, right? So
Yeah.
that Whittlesey would connect to Graber.
But it only goes as far as Pheasant Branch. Doesn't go all the way over to Kew.
Right.
Yeah, then you'd have to go
Right.
Right.
then over.
Pheasant Branch along there is in no condition to accept any more traffic.
That is correct, Bob.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it could be
Well,
better. It works. Again, we just don't have very many north-south roads. We just don't.
And it doesn't, the Graver doesn't connect, it connects to Parmenter, but not Highway 12.
Right. I go to Tribeca and that's it.
And Schrader does have a entrance on 12.
Schneider.
So we only
No.
connect
No, it
to
doesn't.
Parmenter too.
Schneider doesn't have a connection to
Right.
12.
So
So
the
we had
interchange
that-
is up here,
Yeah, okay.
So either way, they've got to go right.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
go.
Yeah.
someplace sideways anyhow, right? It's,
Right.
there's an interchange here and then at Century.
So, okay. So the fact that Graver doesn't connect to 12 is not an issue.
No.
No.
But as a practical matter, if people were doing that, they'd go up, I would think, to the northernmost interchange rather than go down and have to go through all these lights at Airport Road and then that massive lights on Airport Road and Beltline there. It's a little
Maybe.
farther, but it'd be a whole lot quicker if you went north and then got on the Beltline up there.
Yeah, this is a lot easier to use.
Could the connector be Graber and go up High Road and then take what's the dotted line going across towards Pheasant Branch and up Pheasant Branch?
It could.
I mean, that's affecting residential areas before they get built up a whole lot better.
Mhm.
Because I'm real worried about Whittlesey and then Pheasant Branch Road in that area becoming a collector.
Yeah, we don't have control over this land yet, and it's not in our plan to connect somehow this stuff together, but it could be done.
Okay, so let's have those conversations and see if we can all learn something that might change the direction of this a little bit and make life easier for people. But either way, I mean, we know that dotted line as shown has to change anyway, because it can't go through the acres property. So what is the new line? What could it be, understanding the current constraints and subdivisions that are already there and subdivisions that are being planned as we speak? And can we find a path that makes sense? That's hopefully your conversation with the MPO will help guide that a bit.
All right, I had to freshen my beverage here. Where do we stand now? What did I miss?
I think we're wrapping up unless people have questions.
Okay. All right, are there further questions from anyone? Hearing none, I guess we are open for a motion to adjourn, but before we do that, I would thank the developers representatives for coming this evening. Your comments were very helpful. And Gayatri, I hope, having sat through one of our meetings, you'll come back for another one and that we didn't drive you away with this.
I think I will.
Okay, good. Anybody wish to make a motion to adjourn?
This is Robert. I would make the motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there a second to Robert's motion?
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it and we stand adjourned. Thank you all for your participation tonight, and
Thank you.
we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night.
Kathleen and Bruce.
Yes,
And nice to meet you. Let me see if I can get this right. Gayatri?
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.